Hi everyone, welcome to Jawaras. Let's continue the discussion of Spring IOC container. To use Spring IOC container to manage beans, we need to configure two things. First, we need to define beans, and second, we need to define dependencies among different beans. We have been defining both of these configurations using XML. From this video onwards, we will define dependencies using annotations. We will still use XML to define beans. After few videos, we will use annotations to define beans as well, and we will get rid of XML. In this video, we will discuss Autowired annotation, which is used to define dependencies for a bean. Let's start. So Autowired wires the dependencies automatically without explicitly configuring using XML configuration metadata. So you don't need to write any XML configuration in order to define the dependencies for a particular bean. But if you define dependencies using Autowired as well as XML configuration, then the XML configuration will take effect because that has higher priority. To use Autowire, first we need to enable Autowired annotation bean post processor that we will see next. And Autowired supports constructor, setter methods, and you can use Autowire on any method with any name. You can use Autowire on any fields. It also supports arrays, collection maps, and you can define optional dependencies as well. And at the end, we will see constructor resolution. Let's see how to enable auto-wired annotation bean post processor in order to use auto-wired annotation. So this is typical XML configuration file. So here we need to define one tag which is context colon annotation config. So by using this tag, the auto-wired annotation bean post processor will be enabled and it will enable the auto-wired annotation. Let's see how to do that. So I have already created a Maven project, and in this project I have specified Java version 17 and the Spring Dot version 6.0.11. I have added Spring context dependency here. So you don't need to memorize this. You can search for Spring context Maven on Google and you will find this code. And I have specified this version here. And I have created a main class in the main package. Now let's go to resource folder, click new XML configuration file and Spring config. And let's give it a name beans. And we need to put this tag which is context annotation config. So let's do that. Context annotation config. And you can see when we put this tag, the XML context automatically defined here. So you need to define that here as well if your IDE doesn't do this automatically. So since this is an empty tag, so we can just use this one here. So by doing that, now we are able to use auto-wired annotation. So let's see how to use that. So first we will look at how to use it at constructor level. So if you want to use it at constructor level, so if you see at the right side, we have three beans. First bean is of class A, second of class B, third of class C. And in the class A, we have two dependencies of type B and C. And on the constructor, we use auto-wired annotation. Then the Spring IOC container will look for beans of type B and C in the container and it will inject those here automatically. So let's see that. So I will create a new class or inside Java. Yeah. I will create a new Java class inside services. Let's say book service. So I have created a class book service inside service package. And let's create another class inside repositories package, which is book repository. And as you may have already guessed, I will create a variable, instance variable book repository inside book service. We create a constructor, so public book service book repository. This dot book repository will be book repository, and let's annotate it with Autowired and toString method. I will create a toString method here so that we know what is the value of book repository for book service. Let's go to bean.xml, and here we need to specify the beans here. So let's create a bean for class services.book service and another bean for class repositories.book repository, and go to main.java. And first let's create application context or Spring container here. So application context will be new class path XML application context, and the name of the XML file is beans.xml. And let's get book service will be context.get bean book service dot class, and let's get book repository as well from the context.get bean repository dot class, and let's print out book service and book repository. Let's run the application. Okay, first you can see book service has book repository which points to this object, and the book repository which is inside the IUC container also points to the same objects. So that means Spring IUC container successfully injected the dependency using annotation, auto-wired annotation on constructor. Now let's see how to use it on setter method. So that is very easy. So we just need to, if we comment it out and if we run it again, then we can see for book service the book repository is null because the initial value of book repository is null, and we are not setting the value of book repository anywhere, so it will be null, so we are not injecting book repository. So let's create a setter method for book repository, and if we run it again, still you can see book repository is null because we are not calling this method, this setter method, but we can annotate it with auto-word annotation. And if we run it again, this time the Spring IC container will call this method because it has a dependency of type book repository with it, and it will pass that book repository in this setter method. So you can see the both of these book repositories points to the same object. So we are successfully able to inject the dependency using setter method. Now we can use autowired on any method. So let's say we comment out this method, and we we have a method like, let's say, public void repair method which takes book repository, and it's not necessary that we need to set the value of this field variable. It just inject that as a method argument. It doesn't care what we do inside method. So let's say inside method we can do anything, preparing, and then we can print book repository. But let's say we don't assign the value to this book repository instance variable, and if we annotate it with auto wired and run it again, then you can see this statement being printed here, but the book repository is null. So what Spring IC container does is that it just pass that value in method parameters, it doesn't care what the method do. So the setter method as well, it's not necessary that setter method sets the value. It can do anything, but generally setter method sets the value. So here as well, what we can do is this dot book repository is equal to book repository. So we can perform many other operations as well, and apart from setting the value. So that's why this is useful. Now we can use Autowired at field level as well. So let's do that. So here if we say Autowired and if we run it again, then you can see the book repository is not null. It's the same as what's inside the container. So it works on field level as well. And you can mix as well. So let's say we have two things. One is book repository and another, let's create a service, email service here. New Java class, email service, and book service has private email service. And for email service, we have constructor. So let's say public service email service, and we use this dot email service equal to email service, and we annotate it with auto-wide annotation. But we are getting this error that there is no instance of email service in the Spring IC container. So we need to create one bean here for class services dot email service, and we can run it. But first, let's update the toString method email service, and if we run it again, we can see we are injecting email service here as well. So we can mix auto-add annotation at multiple places as well. Now it supports arrays, collections, and map as well. So for example, we can have multiple book repositories. So here, let's say bean class is repositories dot book repository, and inside book service, let's say we need an array of book repositories. And let's remove this email service for now. We don't need it. So I will remove email service, and if we run it again, we are getting error. So the error is no qualifying bean of type repositories dot book repository available, because okay, let's see where are we getting this error. Okay, we are getting this error inside main.java. So inside main.java we are accessing this book repository here. So let's remove this because it needs only one bean, but it found multiple beans, so it will throw exception. So you can see we have in book service, book repository, we have an array of this array of book repositories. So let's see what is the size of the array. So here, instead of printing the array, let's print the length of the array. Yeah, you can see the length of the array is 2. So that means there are 2 book repositories. Now instead of array, it can be list as well. So I want to give example of list. Let's see at the example of map. So let's say instead of book repository, it's a map of. So the type of key in the map should be string, and value will be book repository. So here each entry of the map represents a bean with its name. So key will be name and the value will be the bean itself. So book repositories, and here we print the book repositories only. And if we run it again, we can see for first entry the name is repositories.book repository 0 and the value is this bean itself. For the second entry, the name is repositories.book repository this hashtag 1, because we have not specified the names explicitly. So let's do that here. So if we define the name like repo and define the name here which is test repo, and if we run it again, now you can see the key is repo for first bean and key is test repo for the second bean. So that's how arrays, collections and map. So in the collection we can use list and set. Now let's see how to deal with optional dependencies. So sometimes in our application the dependencies are not required, so they are optional. So how do we use that? So let's do that. So go to book service, and let's do this. Okay, we have book repository here, book repository, and we have email service here. Okay, so book repository and email service. Now we need to remove one book repository here. Okay. And if we run it, it's working fine. So in the book service we have book repository and we have email service. So here let's do this. Before email service, put a comma and space. Okay, and we have email service, so both are available. Now let's remove it. You can see email service is null. So what we can do is, let's use Autowired here, and if we run it now, the email service is not null. Now let's go here and remove the dependence, the bean of email service. If we run it, yeah, you can see we are getting this exception that there is no bean of type services.email service, because book service needs a bean of type email service because we have defined Autowired here. But what we need is, let's say email service is optional, so email service may be present or not. So if it's present, assign it the value. If it's not present, then keep it null. So what we can do is we can use required false here, and we run it here. So we are telling Autowired annotation that this email service bean is optional. If it is present, inject it. If it's not present, let's keep the default value, and the default value we are specifying is null. So email service is null. So that's how we use Autowired required false. Now there is optional as well. So what we can do is, instead of, yeah, we use Autowired only, and let's, instead of email service, it's optional email service. And if we run it again, we can see we are not getting any error, but we are email service is optional dot empty because there is no email service. But if we uncomment it and if we run it again, then we can see we are getting optional which has this value. So whenever we need email service, we can just say like this email service variable dot get. So, and since it's optional, we need to first check if the email services exist or not. If it's not empty, then we can use get method to get the email service. So that's how we use optional. We can use nullable as well. So let's say email service and use nullable here. If we run it, it's not null, But if we comment it out email service here, and if we run it again, email service is null. So if the bean exists in the Spring IOC container, inject its value, otherwise keep it null. Now let's look at constructor resolution. So there can be many cases. So because we can have multiple constructors, so that's why it's important to know about constructor resolution in case of auto-wide annotation. So let's say there are multiple constructor, but none of them is annotated with auto-wide annotation. In that case, primary or default constructor is used. So what do I mean by that? Okay. So let's remove all this code, and we don't have this nullable. Let's remove auto-wide from here. Okay, and we have been, so we have email service as well. Now here let's create a constructor. So public book service. So this is the default constructor, and let's create another constructor, mm, which takes two things. Sorry, which takes one thing only. Let's say book repository, and let's say constructor one. This is constructor 0, and here we can say this dot book repository equal to book repository. Again, create book service which takes email service, and let's say constructor 2, and this dot email service will be email service, and we have fourth constructor, and which takes both book repository and email service. So it's a this dot book repository equal to book repository, this dot email service equal to email service, and let's print out const 3 here. So we have four constructors here. Okay. Now none of the constructor is annotated with Autowired. Now let's see which constructor gets called. So we run the application. We can see const 0 being printed. That means this default constructor is being called. If there is only one is if only one is annotated with Autowired. So let's say if there is no default constructor. If there is no default constructor and if we try it, we will get exception because there are multiple constructor which we can call, but there is no default or primary constructor. So Spring IOC container won't try to guess which one to call and it will throw an error. Now there is only one is annotated with Autowired, so that will be used of course. So let's annotate it with Autowired, and if we run it again, then that will be called const 3. So if there is only one constructor annotated with Autowired annotation, that will be used. Let's say one or more annotated with Autowired. So let's say we have two constructors with Autowired annotation, and if we run it, then it will fail because multiple constructors are or multiple constructors have auto-word annotation. So IOC container is not able to select one and it will fail. If one or more with auto-word required equal to false. Okay. So let's say these two has required equal to false. Let's only one has required equal to false. And if we run it, then also it will fail. So if there are more than one constructor with auto-word annotation, they all should have required equal to false. So required equal to false. If we run it, you can see const 3 because if there are more than one constructors with auto-word annotation, then the constructor with maximum satisfiable dependencies available will be used. That means, see, there are two constructors only with Autowired annotation. So these two constructors won't get considered. So now we need to decide which one of these two should we use. Now the first constructor takes email service as an argument, and the second takes book repository and email service. Now, do we have email service available? Yes. So how many arguments are satisfied here? One. Do we have book repository available? Yes. Do we have email service available? Yes. So in this case, Spring IOC container can successfully inject two arguments, and since 2 is greater than 1, so this will be used. So the constructor with maximum satisfiable dependencies available will be used. If let's say none of the constructor satisfies the dependencies, so in that case the default or primary constructor will be used. If let's say only one constructor, so the class has only one constructor, whether it's annotated with autowired or not, so that will always be used. So let's say we have this constructor only and we can remove all these. Now this constructor will always be used, um, even if required is false or true. So it gives this warning as well that since there is only one constructor, this will be always be used. So you don't need to use required equal to false here, or you should remove that. So it will be used. So now in this case, if we don't have bean of type email service, then we will get exception. And how do we resolve that? We can mark it as nullable. If we if we require that email service is optional, so that's it. So that's how constructor resolution works. So that's it about auto-word annotation. So we have covered almost everything about auto-word annotation. In the next video, we will look at qualifier annotation, which is used to qualify a bean for particular dependency injection. So thank you everyone for watching the video. I will meet you in the next video. Until then, keep learning. Bye.